Hey, this is Kennesaw happening from Overture. And we have in the studio, Paul is back because of really, he has some very interesting thoughts on the maze out there in education. So we want to bring him back to discuss further what we couldn't get to last episode. So Paul, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and who you serve out there.
Yeah, thank you, Pete. It's great to be back. I just when I was here, I think about 2 months ago. Wow, the time flew, didn't it? And I know we got through a couple of different things, but so much has happened really in these last 2 months too, to update folks out there about who Family to Family is and what we do. And so, who am I? I'm Paul Montaperto. I recently started a business here in Marietta, Georgia, called Family to Family Inc. Where we do a couple of different things. We help families find best fit schools in the area, whether that be public, charter, private, all that's happening. I'm using 20 years of experience working in K-12 schools as a teacher, principal, head of school, coach, and the grand network that I've created across the Atlanta community to help families provide the best programs for their kids. In addition to that, we are providing a relocation service. We have our real estate licenses, and we can practice traditional real estate with helping families find homes, sell homes in the area. But for families moving into the Atlanta area, we're able to provide a door-to-door service for them where we find the schools, the homes, handle all their moving expensive activities and things of that nature to get them in the right community with the right school and the right home. And so we've enjoyed that. And then, of course, the third thing is just a traditional real estate, as I mentioned. And so I know today we're here to talk a little bit more about the school aspect and what we do and how we can provide opportunities for families and kids to find something that fits their needs, their concerns, their values, the very best. And so that's what we're going to talk about.
And I know moving and one of the biggest concerns is where the kids are going to go.
Right.
And there's so much going on when you're moving. It's like putting that priority list together of what's important. So with your background in education and being a principal, what do you like to do as far as preparing people for understanding, where the schools are, what they do? Give our viewers a little idea of what the value you bring in those key areas.
Yeah, absolutely, Pete. I think there's three key things that we have learned to focus on that really provide the value and the assistance that folks might not be able to find otherwise. Believe it or not, I just read an article yesterday that talked about the number of families relocating to the metro Atlanta area. And between April of 2022 and April of 2023, there were over 66,000 people that relocated to the metro Atlanta area. And that number continues to grow. And so we have lots and lots of folks coming into our area. And, we have over 1,000 schools. My daughter and I did the math a couple of weeks ago, just looking at the different metro Atlanta area public school districts plus the private schools in the area. And there's over 1,000 schools. And that doesn't even include some of the virtual and homeschool group opportunities that are out there. And so that brings me to the very first thing that we want to do, and that is educating families on what their options are. When you are looking at coming into the metro Atlanta area, you may be coming for work, or you may be coming because you have family here, or whatever the case may be. And so our goal is to educate families from the school perspective on what are the options available to you.
Right.
And so certainly there's that traditional option of when you buy a house, you're zoned for a school, a public school that's there for you. And in some cases, those are great opportunities and options for families. But beyond that, there are many options that I think most families simply aren't aware about or don't have the time to dig through and find out about. And those things are like charter schools. Charter schools has been a growing entity in the United States for the last 10 or 15 years. And many of the metro area public school systems have charter school options for families in which they are based on lottery. And so if they fill out an application and submit their names, and if they're chosen, they're able to attend those private schools. Those charter schools. In addition, there are private schools. There's over 100 private schools just in the metro Atlanta area. Some serving, just a few students, to some serving over 2,500. And within those private schools, there are a number of different types of programs, structures, and value systems that appeal to many different types of folks and families. And so there's just about something for everyone. And so we can help introduce them to what those options are based on a process that we've designed to assess the family's interests, the student's academic and social emotional profile, and then using our Rolodex, if you will, to identify the specific schools that we can then make introductions with the families to the schools and help support them through the admissions process if that's what they want. So that's the very first thing. I think the second thing that we have identified is something I mentioned earlier, and that is the knowledge and experience that we bring to the opportunities we are presenting to families. With over 20 years of experience personally, just for me in working in public and private schools, a lot with special education, gifted education, everything in between. I've had the opportunity to learn a good bit about what happens inside those school walls and the types of programs, the culture, the stability, the leadership that truly lead to opportunity for kids when learning. And so leveraging that plus some of the connections and networking that I'm creating with teachers, counselors that are helping support our efforts, it's providing families something above and beyond what you find when you look up greatschools.org and try to get a rating out of 10. Now, greatschools.org, they pull their data based on a couple of different categories. And that's real data, test scores, free and reduced lunch ratios, diversity, student academic growth, and things of that nature. And certainly some of that information is important to know. But what I am suggesting to families is there is so much greater that goes beyond that we can help provide at least the types of questions to ask when you walk into a school. If not, some of the schools that we know a good bit about, we can offer that information to families so that they can make the best and most informed decisions beyond, some of the data ratings that are accurate in some cases, but not all.
Do you find that you, with that expertise and understanding the school system, do other realtors lean on you to help them? Or is it the kind of thing that a parent or a couple need to understand that there is an expertise out there that understands the educational maze? Because the reason I asked that, with Kennesaw Business Association, we had a breakfast over at Northwest Academy, International Academy, I think. The name, and I had no idea until I heard the principal share and some other people what was involved in that charter. I mean, there's 1,800 people on the lottery for that school. And it's like, what?
Right.
I mean, and they talked about all the different things that they offer. And it was a total education for the 20 minutes that they were talking. So I guess my question is, with you, having this expertise, how are they coming to you with those specific questions like, hey, we want to find the best school for our kids, or are they stumbling on it? How do they find you, or how does that get out there to know your background?
Right. Yeah. To be honest with you, Pete, we're so new.
Oh, okay. That's right.
Still trying to figure all of that out. I think opportunities like being on your podcast, some of the advertising that we're doing, and then of course the large network that I have and that I'm growing by getting in my car and driving to schools and introducing myself to the admissions departments, the heads of school, my sphere, the people that I know who know me as an educator for the last 20 years. And really just trying to get that word out there so that people know that there is a resource now available to help support, one of the biggest decisions that we make for our families, and that's
Yes.
where do our kids go to school. But to your point about the charter, people don't realize the depth of what goes into building those programs, and unfortunately there's only so much space available. And so that's one of the challenges that I think good charter schools have had is, they present this alternative that suits the needs or the desires, the interest for a certain population of students and families, but they can only serve so many. And so that's where we would love to see continued growth in the charter school movement. The other thing that the state of Georgia has done that I greatly appreciate over the last few years, and hopefully we're going to continue with traction with our state government, is providing opportunities for families to leverage state funds to go to a different school other than the one that they're zoned for.
Right.
For example, there's the Georgia Gold Scholarship. And in the last few years, they continue to raise the ceiling on the amount of money that's going towards the Georgia Gold Scholarship. And actually, you as a taxpayer, Pete, can defer your taxes to go and support that Georgia Gold Scholarship. A lot of families don't know that.
Yeah,
a lot of private schools are out there trying to tout that because it only helps them have opportunities to serve more and more kids. And so there's certain qualifying criteria, but simply if you're sitting in a K-12 public school in the state of Georgia for at least 6 weeks, I think in the prior school year, you qualify for a certain amount of funding to then take to applying to your private school tuition for the following year. And then that tuition, that amount will follow you year after year after year for a certain amount of time. The other thing is when you talk about kids with special needs, there's a special needs scholarship that the state of Georgia awards under Senate Bill 10. And families can apply for that and get money to then take their students to maybe a more specialized niche school to support whatever their learning need is and help subsidize some of the tuition. The last one that I just learned about recently is the Georgia Promise Act, Senate Bill 233, that was presented last year, and it was approved by the Senate, but it didn't get pushed through the House. And so they'll be looking at that again in 2024. And that is an opportunity for families to take state-funded money and apply it to an alternative to the school that they're zoned for if that school is considered a failing school.
Okay.
They have the ratings and all of that kind of stuff. So the state of Georgia, I appreciate in the last 5-10 years, the opportunities that they are really leaning into public education, but also education for finding that best fit for families. And oftentimes families just simply can't afford sometimes the large ticket prices on these private schools. And so every little bit helps.
Yeah, but when we were listening to Northwest Talk, they have a business partnership. Right. And so the question was, well, why are you seeking money from the community if you're getting the funds? Because the first question was, how are you funded? And so the person explained that they do get the public funds. However, there is a difference in how much they get. And I think if I remember correctly, it has to do like if you're building a building, the public, they get all that money. If it's a charter, you don't get that money. So there's a gap there of money needed. And that's why they were reaching out to businesses in the community to be their partners, because not only that, but I think there's subsidies with whether food or different things like that they weren't able to get to the degree that, the normal public school was. So I think there's a lot of education that needs to happen because, I mean, I didn't even know, it's not that far away from where we are today. I had no earthly idea the extent of a charter and what's involved in applying. So I think it is complicated out there. What are you hearing in just the time that you've been involved? What is that number one question our viewers would be familiar with, or that did you hear coming up most?
Question about
just like, okay, I'm moving into the area. I've got to put my kids. What are the challenges out there? Is it just applying at a certain time? Is it the where these schools are located? The needs of your children? What are you seeing comes up on a fairly regular basis so far?
Yeah, to be honest with you, Pete, it's all of that. I was just talking to a mother earlier this week who just moved into the Metro Atlanta area from Pennsylvania, and she's got 3 children, a middle schooler and 2 an elementary school and a preschooler. And she is looking at getting them enrolled for the second semester in their local public school before she then decides on trying to find options for the following year. Getting into private schools at mid-year is really difficult, especially when you only have a couple of weeks to accomplish that. But what she was sharing with me was how frustrated she was just with the enrollment process, where she was in the school system, and they're just a regular public school system. And she's new to the area. And so, she's relying on people in the front office to help and things of that nature. And she just didn't feel like she was getting the level of service that is needed. And so that's just, one thing beyond then, introducing her to the various different options around the area. And so, I think it's all of that. When you consider, it can be extremely overwhelming when you are looking at enrolling your children in school, especially if you have multiple children who are very different in the manner in which they learn or just their interests and their values. And let's be honest, as a parent, if you have 3 different kids going to 3 different schools, that can be difficult to manage, right? You just put on your chauffeur hat and you're driving all over the place. And not to say that that's a bad thing. I mean, in some cases that could be a wonderful thing, but it can be very overwhelming for parents to accomplish that. And so with our consultation practice and our opportunities to educate folks, we're able to answer a lot of their questions, or at least minimize the panic by here's step 1, here's step 2. And in the private school world, again, if we can intervene and help connect them with various schools, because we have developed relationships with many of the private schools across the Metro Atlanta area. And so that oftentimes will offer a little bit of peace and assistance for families when they're trying to accomplish that.
Yeah, it's so important. From a person that's removed from it, it does seem like, just my first impression, it's a lot to unpack.
Right.
And so in knowledge is power, but you got to apply it. So can you find it on the internet? Sure. But it's a maze out there, and being able to ask you questions and be able to, we'll put in the show notes. You mentioned a lot of different bills, a lot of, anything that you think our viewers could gain some, we'll put your information in there. But before we close down, tell our viewers how they get a hold of you.
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to get a hold of me is to go to our website. It's www.finc.com. And I think that'll be up in the show notes as well. And then through that, you can dig around and find a little bit more about the 3 different specific arms of services that we provide, like I explained earlier. And then there are multiple places where you can hit a contact form and just fill out your information. And then somebody from our team will contact you to answer any questions you have, or point you in the right direction. So that's the best way to get a hold of us. But you mentioned earlier, Pete, about people leaning on us in the community for the expertise that we have around specific schools, even in the real estate industry, and that is an opportunity that we are emphasizing when we have the ability to connect with different realtors in the market and things of that nature. A lot of them, there is, from an ethical standpoint, realtors have to be careful, because you can't really steer people to certain schools or neighborhoods and things of that nature. And so, of course, we honor that. But what I'm educating them on is there really is something more to it beyond the greatschools.org rating you find on a Zillow website. Because unfortunately, those ratings do not take into consideration the culture of a school. The best way to find out about a school is talk to the people whose kids go there. And so in my neighborhood, we're no longer, my kids are older, and so they don't go to the local elementary school. The local elementary school has a 4 out of 10 rating on greatschools.org. So a lot of people would say, well, no, there's no way I would even consider it. But the people love their school. And the principal is a great principal. They have great teachers there. The kids love going to school. Those are all the measures that I try to point people to better understand how to assess or evaluate a school beyond some of the metrics that are pulled in by some of these data websites. And it's unfortunate because if people are out there shopping for homes, they may just completely ignore a lot of the nice neighborhoods in that area because of that rating on that website. And so anyway, that's something that we're trying to open people's eyes to, when they think about making these large family decisions of what school do my kids go to, and where we're going to find a house, and what community are we going to live in. Those are the big things that they're trying to answer.
Well, that's awesome. And I know we talked, this was just in conversation. I think it was at the lunch with the leaders, that we want to honor our dyslexic viewers. So we would love to have you back to discuss more about that part of it and really help and support them with the schools that are locally here. So we'd love to have you back next month and really talk more in depth about that aspect of learning.
Yeah, I would love to come back. There are some great resources out there for families who have dyslexic learners, whether again being young kids or even adults. And so I'm not an expert in that range, but I certainly have had some experience engaging in dyslexic school environments and working with kids who have dyslexia. And so anything I can do to help, I'd love to offer.
Awesome. Well, Paul, we appreciate it, but we will also want to give you the parting insight. So what would you want our viewers to take away at the end here before we close down?
Yeah, no, I would just say, as you are considering, schools or moving into the Atlanta area, or if you're already in the Atlanta area and you're not happy with a school, or you're just looking for more information about these topics, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to get on a phone call free of charge and just talk. Of course, we have a variety of services that we can offer if that suits you and your family well. And so www.f2finc.com, Family to Family Inc. is who we are. Relocation services to Metro Atlanta, education solutions for students, and then traditional real estate assistance.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Paul, for being a guest on Kennesaw Happenings again. We appreciate you taking the time to come and be with us and our viewers.
Awesome. Thank you, Pete, and Merry Christmas to you.
Yes, Merry Christmas to you.
All right.